The House That Breathes by E.H. Amos. Mark's phone rang for the umpteenth time. It was Andrew. Again. He was already talking before Mark could get the phone up to his ear. He was overexcited again, babbling incoherently about his house. The sound of Andrew's voice was grating today, and Mark pulled the phone back down. His thumb hovered over the red icon to hang up on his old friend. He tried to disconnect, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Andrew had called. Mark had answered. There was no turning back. All Mark had to do was entertain the idea one more time, just for a few minutes, and tell Andrew that he was too busy to talk for long. It was the tried and true method, an excuse Mark was intimately familiar with giving. "Andrew," Mark said into the phone. Andrew either didn't hear him or chose to ignore him. "Andrew," Mark said, harsher, stronger. The moment he did, Andrew stopped to take a breath. The loudness of the words seemed to reverberate in the silence, and neither of them spoke up for several quiet seconds. "Sorry," they both said at the same time. "No, really," Mark continued. "I'm sorry. It's been a day, and I didn't even get a hello, you know? You just called me and started going on about the house again." "It's breathing," Andrew whispered, his voice mystified and reverent. "Andrew," Mark said, sighing and pinching the bridge of his nose. He squeezed his eyes as tightly shut as he could, but it never felt tight enough. He moved his fingers up to his eyelids and pressed against his eyes until he could see swirling patterns of light. The tension persisted. The headache settled in. Mark took a deep breath. "Andrew, the house isn't alive. It isn't breathing. I don't really have time for this today. It was cool and interesting the first time you brought it up, but you have to understand how hard it is to put even an ounce of belief into it." "That's why you need to come over. See for yourself." "You know I can't do that, Andrew. You moved. You moved 5 states east. I can't just get on a plane or drive all that way, put my job and family to the sideline so I can see if your house is breathing or not when I already know it isn't." Silence prevailed. Mark called Andrew's name once more. "I'm still here," Andrew said. "I'm just trying to figure out when you changed." "Funny," Mark said. "I was just thinking the same thing about you. Dude, listen to yourself. It's just your house. Stop being melodramatic." "But it isn't," Andrew said the 3 words with a fierce belief, like he used to talk about the Eucharist before his diagnosis led to his change of heart. Mark could hear in his voice that he believed it. He believed it right now more than anything he had ever believed in. "Think about it. If my house is alive, if it's breathing, then what argument is there against the existence of literally everything else classified as supernatural? If my house can breathe, why can't there be ghosts, magic, zombies, werewolves, fairies, demons, gods, whatever else you could think of? Listen, you can even hear it." Mark listened. He could hear Andrew breathing. "Andrew, you're too close to the phone. Put it down and walk away." The house creaked, the sound of wood against wood as it settled into its foundations. It creaked again, drawn out, in a lower tone. Then once more, in a lighter tone. Mark felt uncomfortable. He reached out and put his hand against the wall of his own house, unsure what he was feeling for. But there was something there. The wall wasn't still. Something was... No. There was nothing. He pulled his hand away and looked at his palm, willing his anxieties to disappear. "Do you hear it?" Andrew said. His voice was far away. He wasn't holding his phone anymore. There was the sound of footsteps, and then, clearer, "Did you hear it, Mark?" "I heard creaking," Mark said, dismissing his feeling of unease. "But you're gonna need definitive proof." "I'm making it right now." "What does that even mean?" Mark asked. His headache had matured into a migraine. There was a loose sock on the floor that didn't make it to the laundry basket. He walked to his bed and collapsed in it with a rough exhale on impact. "Settling in, then?" Andrew asked. "Good. Listen up. I've been taking measurements, notes, making audio-visual recordings, the whole 9 yards. I'm gonna BPRD this thing." "I don't know what that means," Mark said. "Come on, Andrew, stop with all the build-up and just spit it out." "What?" "It's the Bureau for This time it was Andrew's turn to sigh. "Okay, never mind. The doors all open and close, simultaneously, completely on their own. There's no pistons, no pulleys, no anything causing it. There's nothing in the walls and no odd magnetic interference. It's rhythmic, and it's the same pattern as breathing. What kind of pattern? Dude, breathing, Andrew said, the excitement rushing back into his voice again. He picked up the speed of his explanation. Like, we take an average of 12 breaths per minute, 500 milliliters per breath, yeah? As people, as humans. That's eupnea, and That's what? Eupnea. I looked it up. It's the doctor term or whatever for normal breathing. The house doesn't have it. I jury-rigged a spirometry test for the size of the whole house. A what now? A spirometry test, Andrew interrupted himself with a frustrated growl. I did all this research, man, and I'm gonna use it. If you want more than the Cliff's Notes version, you can book a flight. Listen to me. I measured the house's patterns, the change in air pressure and airflow. It's breathing. Not only that, but it's degrading. The house? The breathing, Mark. Are you even listening to me? Against my better judgment, yes. Come on, man. How can you not get excited about this? About what? That your house has asthma? My house has lung cancer. Oh. Mark closed his eyes. He breathed. Focus on just that. Breathing. Like Andrew's house, apparently. He took breathing for granted a lot. Much more than Andrew would. He could feel his pulse in his temples, the veins pushing against his hair. It almost felt like a bug crawling. He reached up and combed his hair with his fingertips, but all he felt was a bulging vein. Mark looked over at his nightstand. There was a picture of his wife and a picture of him and Andrew. They were hiking the Appalachian Trail. They had saved up together before Mark was married and had taken a 6-month leave of absence from their jobs together and managed to hike the entire thing. Andrew had good lungs back then, strong and healthy. They looked so much younger in the photograph than they did now. Mark stood up from his bed. Andrew, can you please just take care of yourself? He asked, his tone worried and soft now. He wondered if Andrew could hear the change of tone from annoyance to something else. He hoped he didn't sound like a hostage negotiator. Have you eaten today? Drank anything? Got some exercise? Have you gone to work, put some effort in your hobbies, and gotten enough sleep this week? I can order a pizza to your house from here. I'm not crazy, Mark. There was heartbreak in his voice. Mark winced. How would you feel about this if I was, healthy? I'd still think it was crazy and weird and, yeah, maybe a little cool, Mark said. But right now it's just sad. I'm depressed, Andrew, thinking about you losing your mind in that house, projecting yourself on an inanimate thing and then dreaming up lies to back up the fantasies. Fantasies? Andrew asked. Lies? You think I'm just straight up lying to you. There was silence over the line so deep that Mark wondered if Andrew hung up. He pulled the phone away from his ear and looked at the screen. The timer blinked 8 minutes, 8 seconds, and was ticking up. Andrew was still there. Mark brought the phone back to his ear again. I'm sorry, Mark said. It stayed quiet for only another moment. I know, Andrew finally replied. But my cancer isn't in my brain. I'm not losing my mind. I don't have some tumor pushing against my brainstem. My house is breathing, Mark. How can I just pretend it's not happening? By blaming it on my illness? That doesn't make sense. I'll lose sleep over it no matter what. Then tell me what you think it all means, Andrew. What's your theory? I don't know. I want to believe so many things. A bunch of different things. Like what? Just spit them out. I said I don't know, man. I guess, maybe the house is possessed. Maybe it's alive somehow. Maybe it's a rift to another dimension or something. Listen to yourself. Seriously, Andrew, listen. Let's say this is all in my head, Andrew suggested, like you think it is. Let's just assume I'm crazy, insane, that you're the only rational person here. Andrew, come on, you know that's not what No, Mark, we're doing this your way now since it's the only way you'll listen to. I'm insane, I'm a wacko. You're not, you're normal. Mark covered the phone with his hand and sighed so Andrew couldn't hear it. He began pacing the room. I've lost my mind in this house, Andrew continued, and now I'm seeing things that are so real to me I can't tell it apart from reality. What does that say to you? What do you think that means? For me? For what happens next? What is that a sign of? For someone who's sick like I am, Mark. The door to the bedroom squeaked on its old hinges as it opened several inches. Mark's wife stuck her head in the door. He turned to look at her and said to no one, "I need to put some WD-40 on those hinges. I keep forgetting." "What?" Andrew asked. Mark looked up at his wife. She was miming, pointing at a watch on her wrist that she wasn't wearing. She mouthed, "Gotta go." Mark nodded. "Andrew, I gotta go." "I know, Mark. Me too." Something about the way Andrew said that left a bad taste in Mark's psyche. "Why? Are you all right?" "Yeah, it's just time, you know. I have some other research to do." "Seriously, man, what's up?" "I have work to do, and I have to do as much as I can before I'm too sick to do anymore. So just come see, Mark. Or don't." Mark gave a polite half-smile to a man a little over 1,000 miles away who couldn't see his face. He knew his friend would be able to hear it in his voice anyway. They were close, almost as close as Mark was with his wife. He thought about his job, his plans, his friends and neighbors. He opened his mouth, said nothing, closed it, then opened it once more. "Deal," he said. "I'll book a flight." "Wait, what?" "I'll book a flight," Mark said again through an exhalation of exertion as he bent down to pick up the stray sock from the floor and toss it to his laundry basket. He took a deep breath and let it out. "If your house is normal, then you go to the doctor. And if it's not, we'll BPDD it, or whatever you said. BPRD, you uncultured swine. Go watch Hellboy. We can watch it together when I get there. I'll see you in..." Mark realized he didn't care what else he had planned. "Next week, as long as you're not contagious. If you gave your house lung cancer, I don't want to catch it too." "Can't say anything for certain," Andrew said, and Mark could hear the smile in his voice like he knew Andrew could hear the smile in his own. Finally, it felt nice to know his friend was smiling again. "This is uncharted territory, man," Andrew finished. "We'll chart it out then," Mark said, "as long as we can do it in under a week." "Deal," Andrew said. "Thanks, bro. It's cool," Mark said. "I love you too, buddy. See you soon."